Sergeant Artilleryman Jack Thompson of the U.S. Marine Corps joyfully boarded a huge airplane, thrilled to be traveling. After nearly 6 years gone, he returned home and hugged his beloved wife Anna. As the plane ascended, Jack reflected on his life and everyone he had met. Anna in 1997 at an event at Balboa Park, San Diego, where he was training. Camp Pendleton. They were both in line for ice cream when a child on roller skates accidentally knocked her down. Forcing her to drop her cone, Jack helped her up and insisted on purchasing her a new one, her long red hair shining. Green eyes captured him, and he was charmed. She accepted his offer, and the day marked the beginning of their romance. They spent hours swapping stories, and by the end of the day, Jack knew she was the one he wanted to marry. Anna was studying for a business degree at San Diego State University, hoping to join her father's renowned investing firm, which had offices all around the country, and Jack was a corporal undergoing. During scout sniper training, he frequently spoke with pride about his military ancestry, his father being a retired Marine who served in Vietnam. His grandfather was a World War II Marine, and his great-grandfather. The Thompson family, a World War I veteran, had a deep history of service in the Marine Corps, including crucial conflicts throughout American history are a family tradition that I've always appreciated, as Jack remarked. Their romance flourished until Jack received orders to deploy to Okinawa for a year, a month before he told Anna that he comes from a traditional family and would like to obtain her father's approval for marriage. To marry her. Her eyes brightened up with a smile that weekend. They drove to her parents' house in Los Angeles, where her parents admired Jack, now a corporal, and her father, Richard Harrison, invited him into his study for a discussion and offered him a drink, which Jack accepted despite his young age. Richard inquired, "What are your intentions with my daughter, sir?" "I intend to marry her with your blessing, Jack." Richard grinned and agreed. "You should know I'm grooming her to take over the family business," he noted. Jack knew I am also profoundly involved in my family's legacy, he stated. "I've heard," Richard said, "your family has produced some remarkable individuals. You aim to create a career in the Corps?" "Yes, sir." Jack confirmed that our firm has offices nationwide. Anna and I have discussed, and she is willing to move with me to stay together during deployments or long postings like as Okinawa. Your daughter is great, and I feel we can make it work. She can move with you for the first 10 to 15 years, but eventually she'll need to be in Los Angeles to pursue her career." Richard said, "Can you manage that?" Jack nodded. "I'm a Marine, sir, and we learned to." Richard grinned and nodded. "When do you plan to marry Anna?" "We'll graduate when I return from Okinawa, so we thought it was better to wait until then." "If that's acceptable," Jack responded. Richard responded, "It gives us time to prepare," and handed Jack some. "Hello, Jack. Both Anna and my wife care greatly for you," he said. "Anna values your companionship, and I give you mine blessing to marry her. Please examine this form and sign if you agree." "What is it?" Jack asked. "It's a prenuptial." Richard said that the agreement is to protect Anna and her assets in the event of divorce. "I simply want to safeguard my daughter. Many people are drawn to her because of her wealth." Jack felt a little irritated but recognized the importance of to guarantee fairness. "I'd like to have our lawyers at Pendleton analyze the agreement," he requested. "Is that okay?" Jack said. Richard nodded. "I understand that my father always advocated consulting before signing anything. Let your lawyers study it thoroughly and make any necessary adjustments." The agreement, which was a common measure to protect honest assets in the event of divorce, also stated that, in the event of infidelity, the guilty party would receive no assistance and lose 70% of the marital assets, according to Jack's counsel. Made changes to ensure that it applied evenly to both spouses. Jack and Anna delivered the updated contract to Richard, who inquired about the modifications. "My family owns a huge ranch in West Texas, a portion of which is leased to oil companies," Jack Said the lawyer thought this would balance things out when I inherited. I understand, Richard. Answered, that's acceptable. They completed the paperwork, and life went on that evening during a family meal. Jack proposed to Anna with a diamond ring, which she happily accepted while her parents clapped. Jack and Anna experienced a touching moment the night before his deployment to Okinawa. She questioned, "What does Ser Fidelis mean?" Seeing it on the Marine Corps logo, it's the Marine Corps motto, which Jack explained meant always faithful. Symbolizes honesty and loyalty, which are crucial to me. Trust is everything. She pulled herself up and peered into his eyes. I will always be devoted and loyal to you, Jack. I love you more than everything. He smiled and softly kissed her. I will always be devoted and loyal to you, my darling, he muttered. Jack's first stay at Okinawa was rough, and he missed Anna dreadfully and spent his spare time writing her letters and sending images, avoiding the lure of local girls. Anna sent him letters and postcards every day. When the year finished, Jack went home. Anna's parents arranged a big wedding, even financing the cost of bringing Jack's parents from West Texas. Jack, now a sergeant, donned his dress uniform, and his fellow Marines from Pendleton served as ushers following the ceremony. They walked beneath the Marine Corps Sword Arch and went on a honeymoon to Hawaii with Anna's parents. Life seemed wonderful. Jack re-enlisted in 2000 and was stationed to the Marine Barracks in Washington, D.C. Their daughter, Sarah, was born in 2001 and inherited Anna's hair, eyes, and Jack's characteristics. She worked at her father's Washington office to keep the family together when terrorists struck the World Trade Center in September 2001. Center in the Pentagon, producing global shockwaves. A fourth airliner crashed in Pennsylvania as passengers struggled. Shortly later, Jack was asked to employ his sniper skills for a new mission. Anna understood the demands of aquatic life while Jack was deployed. Worked in Los Angeles and cared for Sarah. When he returned, she worked in the neighboring office. Their strong bond was maintained. Anna was pleased with Jack's assistance and frequently expressed her gratitude to him. Tern was proud of honest successes at Whitman Holdings, making it more family-friendly in 2008. Anna worked in the company's Savannah headquarters after serving as a drill instructor on Parris Island, South Carolina, for 2 years, and attended all his graduations. She was happy of his accomplishments and shared her enthusiasm with others following. After completing his service, Jack was promoted to sergeant major and sent to Camp Pendleton. Anna handled the company's regional offices in San Diego, and they stayed together in 2011. Deployed to Afghanistan for a year, unbeknownst to him, his heartfelt goodbye to his wife and children be the last time he'd see them for 6 years. At the end of his service in 2012, he re-enlisted for another 6 years. During this period, he confronted a dangerous position after eliminating. His target was encircled by hostile soldiers, and he feared for the safety of his family. He was anxious since these adversaries did not follow the standards for prisoners of war. Instead of being executed, he was confined in a crate and transferred regularly when not in transportation. He underwent severe beatings. Despite his extensive training, escape appeared impossible. Jack started looking for chances, but remained trapped. He didn't sure how long he'd been held, but knew it was a large amount of time. He listened for clues, but his kidnapper spared his life despite the fact that he had only acquired a few words and phrases in Arabic. Because someone in the U.S. wanted him alive but out of danger, he also assumed he was not in the Middle East despite the dense green flora around him, Jack managed to silently slip away from a small room with a gun. He snatched a knife and ammunition from one of the intoxicated soldiers. It took them some time to notice his absence, by which time he had walked some miles, and after numerous futile attempts they gave up. Jack navigated He survived primarily on leaves and insects in the jungle, ignorant of his actual location and guided by the sun eastward. During his training, he occasionally collected small animals for sustenance. Days passed without seeing another person. When he eventually located a route, he cautiously followed a while. Remaining hidden, Jack continued, looking for evidence that would indicate his whereabouts. He took breaks to eat and removed a little snapshot from his wallet. A photo of Anna and Sarah. He kissed it, put it back, and pressed on. He lost track of time and felt like giving up, but the idea of his wife and daughter kept him going when tiredness set in. He thought about them and found the strength to keep on. He cleaned with rainwater and found shelter. When he could, the terrain varied, but Jack kept moving east, constantly avoiding humans. One day he arrived at A. He waited until nightfall to enter the town, which appeared vast and sophisticated, expecting to find the U.S. Embassy and claim asylum. His camouflage outfits were tattered, his boots were worn through, and he appeared sickly and starved, a shadow of. Luckily, he still had his ID card and dog tags as darkness fell. Jack silently entered the town and saw a sign indicating he was in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, knowing there was a U.S. embassy. He continued cautiously, recognizing the building and the American flag, and approached the front gate, but when halted by a Marine guard, he showed his ID and identified himself, which the guard verified. His ID and called someone inside. Soon Jack was in a wheelchair, surrounded by Marines in formal clothes who brought him into a consular officer gathering. His details and fingerprints, confirming his identity and swiftly getting him to a hospital owing to his condition. His uniform was removed, and he was bathed, dressed in a robe, and placed in. Medical professionals began delivering water and medication through and for in his arm, while others, Mr. Thompson, the doctor, stated that he collected blood samples and thoroughly examined him. You arrived just in time. Another day or two, and you might not have made it. Just rest and relax. We will prepare you for transfer as soon as possible. The doctor has left the room. Feeling better, Jack quickly fell asleep and awoke as a clean-shaven man in a suit was in the room examining some documents. Seeing Jack stir, the man concentrated on him. How are you feeling, Gunnery? Man asked. Jack nodded. Better, thank you, he said softly. Where am I now? In a hospital in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. The man said. What day is it? Jack questioned. Rubbing his head, the man said, You've been missing since October 15th, 2016. Over 4 years. 4 years, Jack asked in disbelief. That can't be. Yes, the man said. Do you remember where you were and who held you? Who are you? Jack asked the man, who smiled and showed his ID. John Smith. Intelligence. Leon explained. Can you tell me where you were and who captured you? Somewhere west of here. But I'm not sure who held me, but I was surrounded by other groups. I heard numerous names, and I believe one of them was Boo Haram, but I'm not certain. Can you describe the places you passed through, the vegetation and the terrain? JN questioned. John took notes as Jack narrated as much of his travels as he could recall, nodding numerous times. How did you survive, John? Asking. Thanks to Sears School, Jack said. John grinned and said, I'll pass that along. Do you remember anything else? Anything unusual? Yes, Jack answered. I remember hearing my kidnappers mention a sponsor. It appeared that someone wanted to keep me away but not kill me, which I never understood. John remarked that we need to add this to the wider picture and see what happens. Listen, Gunnery, your family has been notified that you are alive, and arrangements are being made for. As soon as the doctors here clear you, we'll take you to Bethesda Rehabilitation. The good news is you're entitled to several years of back pay and a lot of leave. Jack smiled. Thank you. He replied. You rest and relax, Gunner. You're in good hands. Jack spent several months in the hospital before physicians cleared him for flight. He had developed several infections throughout his ordeal and was badly starved. There was concern about Ebola, but after the tests were negative and John did not contact him again, intelligence officers examined him and Marine. Guards provided him civilian clothes and a new uniform. Now clean and groomed, Jack was nearly unrecognizable from his initial appearance. He slept most of the journey to Bethesda. When he arrived, he was he was surprised to find cards, greetings, and flowers in his new room. Greetings from his parents, Anna's parents, and Sarah, but his wife just sent a generic card with well wishes. She texted something he assumed the next days were a haze of medical evaluations on every area of his body. Blood was obtained and several tests were performed, including a psychological evaluation by the medical professionals. He attempted to contact Anna numerous times after recommending a specific diet and a demanding physical treatment plan. He always seemed to miss her. He managed to chat to Sarah and his parents, but Sarah avoided addressing her mother, stating she was constantly busy with business. He learned that her father had retired 3 years earlier and that Anna had taken over as CEO. After spending 2.5 months with Brad Jefferson, the chairman of the board, Jack was discharged. It had been 5 years since his capture and 6 years since he last saw his wife and child. When he found out he had 150 days of accumulated leave and about 200,000 in back pay, he called Sarah and informed her he'd be home soon and greet her at the airport. As Jack peered out the airplane window, he wondered what awaited. He had only received a card with best wishes from Anna, and he wondered if she had moved. When the plane landed in Los Angeles, Jack disembarked alongside the other passengers, holding a little bag. He retrieved his duffel bag and noticed Sarah, who reminded him of Anna when they first met. Sarah's red hair flowed as she raced. Approached him with wide arms. "Papa," she shouted, eyeing him fiercely and caressing his face. His eyes filled with tears as he embraced her. "I missed you so much," she whispered. He glanced at her, his voice. "I missed you too, princess," he added. "Is your mother here?" Eyes sank as she shook her head. "No, Daddy. She's not. She's working as usual." "Let's go to the car." Sarah tried to carry his duffel bag, but it was too heavy for her. A man dressed in a chauffeur's black suit approached and took it from her. They moved his items into the trunk, and Jack sat in the back seat with Sarah. "What is going on?" he asked Sarah, who took out a little laptop and inserted a USB drive. "Mom's status has changed," she explained, "and now she's the CEO." Jack nodded, indicating that she had been spending time with Brad Jefferson, the chairman of the board. Jack inquired. "Yes," Sarah responded. "About 3 years ago they started eating lunches, then meals. Now it's a serious relationship." "He's been with your mother for 3 years?" Jack asked Sarah. "I tried to tell her it was wrong, but she wouldn't listen. She's so different now than she used to be." Sarah claimed she used to be pleasant and entertaining, but now she's cruel. She bosses people around and treats them terribly. "Before she changed, once we heard you were absent and your status was changed to unavailable, she went too far. I don't even recognize her anymore. I assured her that you will return, but it appeared she didn't care when she started spending a lot of time with Brad. She took him home, and I heard they were laughing and having a nice time in her room, and I didn't like it," she added, beginning to cry. Jack hugged her tightly. "I'm so sorry, princess. I wish I could have been here." Jack sighed, holding his daughter tight. "I understand, Dad," said. "I did everything I could to get back at her," Sarah inquired. Puzzled, several students at school advised that I videotaped some instances when Mom was home. So with Mom's permission, I bought some stuff online and set up some cameras in her room where she wouldn't see them. I captured a few. I only watched the movies briefly, since they were very improper for me." She turned on the laptop and accessed the USB drive, giving him a pair of headphones and playing the first video Jack watched. Anna and Brad got naked in her room, becoming intimate and uncomfortable. Jack watched for a minute or two before turning off the camera. "That's enough, Dad." "I'm sorry," Sarah claimed. "It wasn't your fault." "Princess," Jack soothed her, "but you might want to listen to the films from the last 2 weeks," Sarah recommended Mom. "And Brad have been acting strange since they discovered out you were alive and coming back. They've been bickering a lot lately. It doesn't make sense to me." She handed Jack a key. What is this? Jack questioned. It's the key to your truck, Dad. She stated that when I discovered out you were coming home, I took your truck out of storage and had it fixed. It's in the garage. Jack smiled, remembering the 2010. He bought a Ford F-150 X4 before his last tour, and I thought you might need it. Mom kept up the registration and insurance, so it's all legal. Thank you, but I need more than just a truck. I can't live in the house with an unfaithful wife. Therefore, may I stay with someone? Sarah asked. I don't like what Mom has been doing, and she hasn't been home much recently. She doesn't cook or anything like she used to. She probably has someone else handling things. Jack grinned. Of course you may remain. Sarah grinned and hugged Jack warmly, saying, Thank you. Dad, she continued, but you know the judge might make you stay with Mom. He cautioned it's usually what happens in a divorce, so you're going to divorce her? Sarah inquired. I don't have a choice. Sighing, the automobile had drove into a gated driveway and halted. Front of a big home with great columns. My God, Jack says you dwell here. Yes. Sarah said Brad persuaded Mom to buy it when she became CEO. I hate it here. They entered the house, and the driver delivered Jack's suitcase to a man who received them at the front entrance. This way, sir. Man said, straining with Jack's big backpack. They climbed lengthy curved steps. Like something out of Gone with the Wind, Jack watched the man fight before following him to a door on the second story. Madam said you should stay here, and the man stated Jack stole the bag from. He put it on the bed and looked around, noting the room's sterile high-end Hotel F. I won't be here long, Jack said. Thanking the servant before leaving the room, he asked Sarah which way to the master bedroom. Sarah took him down. When Jack entered the hall and opened the double doors, he noticed the absence of family portraits and mementos. He discovered a legal document, drawer, and after reviewing the paperwork, I was surprised to find that Brad had encouraged Anna to declare him dead. Fortunately, the documents had not yet been filed, and the folder also included a notarized copy of the prenuptial agreement he and Anna had signed years ago. He took the unfiled documents and left the room, followed by Sarah. Returning to his allotted room and finding the intention to declare him dead felt like the ultimate betrayal. Where is my truck? He questioned. I need to leave this location. What happened? Sarah shook her head as she questioned. Dad, did you know Mom was planning to declare me dead? Had no, Dad, I didn't know, she replied, startled. How could she? I need to go. Jack responded. I'm sorry, Sarah, but I can't stay here even for a minute. I need to find a hotel and think things over. Will I see you again? She asked, tears in her eyes. Yes, I'll let you know where I am. He said, but I need to talk to your mother about this, which won't be easy. Understand, Dad, she continued, but before you go, I have a few things for you. She left the room and returned with a laptop bag, an envelope, and a smartphone, which she handed. I got this phone to stay in touch with him, and she claimed that it has all of the latest capabilities, and I activated it for you, Princess, he added, appreciating the gesture. This will be very useful. You're welcome, she remarked, handing him the laptop. You'll need this too. I entered my number into it. He thanked her for the laptop, and she handed him the envelope. What's this, Jack? Questioned. It's an invitation to a large business function. Mom will be out tonight. She stated I can't tolerate being around her in BR, so I thought you might like to come to my flat. I heard the press will also be there. He opened the envelope and noted the time, 9:00 p.m. He smiled at the possibilities. Thank you again, he replied. Now, where's my truck? I've got a lot to accomplish. Follow me, she urged. Jack packed his possessions and followed his daughter down the stairs. The servant who had carried his luggage stopped them. Sir, dinner will be served in 15 minutes. Announced, will you be joining us? No, certainly not, Jack said forcefully. The man's eyes widened at Jack's resolute reaction. What should I tell Madam? The servant inquired. Tell her to kiss my ass, Jack responded plainly. Yes, sir, I'll tell her she can kiss your ass. The servant repeated, a trace of amusement in his voice. Jack nodded happy. Let go, he whispered, following his daughter out the back door and into. In the garage, he noticed his large blue vehicle next to a sleek Mercedes for a brief period. He debated scratching the Mercedes with his key, but decided against it. He threw his possessions into the rear seat of the crew cab and looked to his daughter. I'm sorry for everything, Dad, she replied as he hugged her and murmured softly, please stay in touch. I'll always be here for you. It's not your fault. I'll call you after I find out where I'm staying. And thank you for everything. I love you, Princess. And you too, Dad. Answered Jack, got into the truck and started it. He smiled as the engine roared to life. He took one more look at. Before driving away, his daughter smiled and waved as Dad left the garage. Jack found a motel with weekly prices. He checked in, prepared some coffee using the complimentary machine, and started looking for a divorce lawyer. Scheduled an appointment for later that day. He set up the laptop and plugged it in, setting aside the sheet of paper. Sarah's email address after completing the setup. He created an email account and notified his daughter. Despite his inner distress, he plugged the USB disk Sarah had given him and went through the list of videos. In a recent video, Anna and Brad were bickering. Brad suggested they be intimate, but Anna refused, claiming she wouldn't do it while Jack was still alive. Anna, apparently agitated, fled to the master bathroom. They were still married. After slammed the door, Brad got out his phone and made a call, speaking quietly enough for Jack to only hear par. Tia. During the conversation, Brad said, I need you to do me a favor. You'll get paid once. You finish the assignment. Don't look at me like that. I'm not the one who lost him. You had one mission to keep Thompson out of circulation for 5 years. You didn't do it. Complete this, and you'll get the remainder of the money I owe. You know she doesn't know. Do you agree that I need to leave her alone? Goodbye. He ended the connection just as Anna came from the restroom. Jack paused the camcorder, surprised by what he heard. Was Brad Jefferson responsible for his captivity? Was Anna complicit in this twisted game? Regardless, she had betrayed and had to face the consequences, but Brad had to answer for his conduct. Jack transferred the video to his. As he prepared for his meeting with the lawyer, he changed from his uniform to trousers and a polo shirt given by. Bethesda gathered everything and headed to the lawyer's office. Sally Clemens, a harsh lawyer known for her fierce attitude, approached him. Jack originally worried if he was in the proper location, but Sally's frown softened when she spotted him. Are you going to leave Mr. Thompson? She questioned. Listen, Miss Clemens, Jack continued. My wife has been cheating on me for 3 years while I've been away. I went through everything to return only to find out. She also planned to pronounce me dead, and no amount of advice will change that if you refuse to aid me, because I am a guy. Say so now, and I'll find someone else. Her face softened a little. I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson stated. I don't represent cheaters, and in my experience, many come to me thinking I'll help them fix their marriages. I guess that's why you came. You assumed without hearing me out. Jack answered, I think I'll find someone else. He went to leave, but she stopped him. Please, Mr. Thompson, she continued. Let me see what you have. Jack sat back down and took out the USB drive, and handed her the folder containing the prenuptial agreement and the unfiled declaration of death. She inspected everything before delivering it to him. How much is your wife worth? Jack shook his head. I had no notion he mentioned she's the CEO of Whitman Enterprises and lives in a huge mansion. I've been gone for years, so I don't know how much she's worth. Millions. Are you sure this isn't a trick to gain her money? Sally questioned, suddenly realizing her error. How dare you, Jack? Growled, I don't care about her money, and we never had a nice marriage until this man showed up. I have every excuse to believe he is behind my issue. I simply want a quick divorce based on the prenuptial agreement so I can go on. Again, Mr. Thompson, I apologize. Sally indicated that you have a daughter. Have you? I want custody of her, and she wants to stay with me, Jack stated. Sally said she's 16, so the judge might consider that, but actually winning custody will be difficult because courts normally favor the mother. Your military duty could potentially be an issue, therefore we might try for shared custody, with your wife having physical custody. And you having generous visits, Jack agreed. Yep, that's okay, Sally nodded. Can we start the process? I can have the documents ready and serve her at work in 2 or 3 days. She mentioned that the filing. According to the prenuptial agreement, California is a no-fault state, which means you cannot sue for divorce based on infidelity. Do you want any assistance from your wife? Jack shook his head. Okay, Sally. But a request that she covers attorney fees and court costs. That's fine. Jack stated he paid a substantial retainer. On his way back to the hotel, he observed a bar and grill and decided to stop and checking his watch. He had a few hours before the evening event and was a little hungry. He entered and ordered a burger and a soft drink. After eating, he sipped his drink and considered who to contact about Jefferson. He was certain that Jefferson was accountable for his confinement. Glancing around the bar, he observed 2 individuals who appeared to be monitoring him. Both had deeper skin tones, and one had a mass of untamed hair and a thick single brow. A voice next to him spoke as he raised his cup. Hello, Gunny, remarked an older man with largely gray hair parted slightly off-center. How do you know I'm Jack, a gunnery sergeant? Queried the man, who tilted his head and smiled. You just look like a gunny to me. Smiled back. Perhaps we should lose the uniform, he offered. The man laughed. Jack Thompson, gunnery sergeant in the United States Marine Corps, offered his hand. I shook his hand, and I know he remarked your TV look pleased me while walking over. Tropical Africa without a map, escaping terrorists and live off the soil for 5 years. Your instructor must have been outstanding. They were. Jack agreed. What brings you here? I'm not giving interviews if that's what you're after. The man smiled and presented his ID. Jack spotted a revolver holstered in his jaw. Jacket, Lee Gibson, NCAS. Can we talk privately? Jack nodded. Yeah. I have a motel. Lee hopped from his bar stool and led the way, telling Gunny that his pickup is parked out back. Jack said, follow me and watch those 2. They've been following me since I came in. Lee said that they had been watching him for a while. Follow me and be ready if they show up behind us. Boss, Jack said. Lee chuckled as they exited the bar. The 2 guys stood, followed them outside. Lee observed and approached Jack. Do you think you can handle Curly? Jack nodded yes and no. As they neared Lee's SUV, which was parked next to Jack's truck, he noticed the curly-haired man's reflection in. The man looked to have a knife in his belt as he prepared to assault Jack. Sid, who stepped crouched and hit the man in the gut. The man slumped over, and Jack kneed him in the face, breaking his nose. The man dropped. He dropped to the paved parking lot. Jack kicked him a few times in he groined before throwing the knife aside. A man laid on the ground, groaning in pain, and watched Lee talking on the phone while the other man was tied. Moments afterward, another black SUV arrived, and 2 guys emerged, one of whom was handcuffed. While the other muttered to Lee, they placed both men into the back seat of the SUV and drove away. Lee looked at Jack. Not bad for an old gunnery sergeant, he noted. Jack smiled. I'll show you what old means. Lee got into his SUV and followed Jack to the motel. Jack produced more coffee and offered Lee a cup. Lee groaned as he took a sip. Thing he asked they call it coffee. Jack said, sorry, I haven't had a chance to go to the store yet. So, what brings NC here? Do you know someone named Brad Jefferson? Lee? I know who he is, Jack explained, but I'm not familiar with him personally. I know he's the chairman of Whitman Enterprises and suspect he's accountable for my enslavement in Africa, but that's it. We monitored multiple calls from him to known terrorists abroad, as well as ISIS sympathizers in Los Angeles. Multiple transactions between him and some dubious Middle Eastern companies. Damn, Jack, I have some videos that. What's on them? Lee asked. It's part of a conversation he had with someone named Mahmud, which I didn't hear. On the other side, Jack revealed that he turned on his laptop and showed a tape of Brad's talk with Mahmud Lisa. Lee's eyes opened as he heard. Are there more videos? He asked. Yes, but I haven't gotten a chance to go through them all, Jack said. I'm not sure if Brad was talking to Mahmud. No problem, Lee responded, bringing out a flash drive and transferring them here. My tech team will carefully evaluate them. Jack noted that these films were recorded in my wife's bedroom. Do you plan to divorce her? Lee inquired. I just met with a lawyer, and she's preparing the papers now. I'm sorry, Jack Lee murmured, shaking his head. It's not your fault. Based on our chat, I assume Anna was unaware of this, but her actions are nonetheless reprehensible. Lee nodded. HEK still need to talk to her. It would help her comprehend the weight of her actions. I don't think she fully. Lee grinned and added, I'll take care of it. You're not a bad person. Emily, the high school teacher, grinned as she poured the rest of her lemonade down the sink and threw away the cup. You might not say that once you start buying real lemonade. Emily laughed. Jake laughed. Do you think it's safe here? Should I find another place to stay? He inquired. Emily responded, I think you'll be as. I'll have a few pals keeping an eye on you as well, just in case she hands him a. Jake commented, Please call me if you need anything at any time. Number on a little piece of paper and handed it to Emily, who placed it into her pocket. I'll be in touch, Emily murmured, leaving Jack. Sat with his coffee examining the videos Sarah had sent him. His heart aches as he watches how she could do. Oh, this to him. He wondered in the background if Anna and Brad were debating proclaiming him dead and the repercussions for Sarah. I couldn't help but notice Brad's delighted face during the chat, but Anna didn't appear. Concerned about the matter as the evening approached, Jack prepared for the social gathering he planned to attend. He showered. He shaved and opted to wear his class uniform after fixing it. Raising his cap slightly, he accepted Sarah's invitation and left the home, parking in the hotel lot for the event. He entered the building, removed his cap, and showed his invitation to the doorman. Jack walked in. When I met Anna and Brad, her hair was darker and shorter, and she had new wrinkles around her eyes and mouth. Yelled out at Jack as he approached. So now it's Jack, he inquired cynically. Turning to Brad for encouragement, Jack approached him and observed that he was at least 3 inches taller than Anna Lover. Approached as if he were about to drill a recruit, standing nose to nose with him, forcing him to look up. Jack stretched his. Jack grabbed Brad's hand and squeezed it so hard that Brad gasped in pain. So you're Brad Jefferson. Jack says you're the one who's been spending time with my wife for the past 3 years. Spoke loudly, prompting the surrounding people to gasp in astonishment, asking if I might take a minute. Talk to my wife, that would be nice, Jack suggested. Anna intervened. Jack, please go. Return to the house, and we'll talk later, she added, attempting to dismiss him as if he were one of her servants. Jack's eyes filled. Wrath. And Anna had never seen him like this before. Okay, fine, he said, his words oozing with disdain. The surrounding people instinctively drew back. I am not your servant, and you cannot. Just order me around, he continued. She moved back, stunned by his tone. Jack grasped her by the arm and guided her. Aside, Jack, are you causing a scene? She murmured, please not here. Why not, Jack? When questioned if she was humiliated to be called out by her own husband, he looked at her left hand and realized she wasn't wearing her wedding or engagement rings. You should be able to bring yourself to wear the rings I gave you. That's why you decided to hook up with this guy and declare me dead, and I know everything about it. Sorry, but the stories of my death have been greatly exaggerated. Anna flushed as she stared down at the floor. Do you remember what I told you about Seer Fidelis and the significance of allegiance? He questioned. She nodded. So you knew when you selected to be with him. You became a traitor to me. You became my enemy. Her eyes widened. Shock. And you know what I do with my enemies, Jack. Please think again before you do something. Brad is a great. Jack laughed in her face. You have no idea what you're doing. She stated that Jack was an influential individual who may cause you harm. Talking about who do you suppose kept me imprisoned all these years? Her eyes widened. He wasn't sure if Brad was guilty for his confinement, but he wanted to witness her reaction. It appears that you have forgotten that I am a United States Marine. I don't back down from problems, and you're no longer part of my life. I'll be filing for divorce soon. Pulled out the photo he carried with him throughout Africa and offered it to her. This assisted me on my voyage through Africa. He stated that while I was cold, tired, hungry, and unwell, the thought of my lovely wife and daughter waiting for me at home gave me the strength to keep going. I still have a daughter, so perhaps 1 out of 2 isn't so awful. So he removed his wedding band and handed it to her. What do you want me to do with it? She questioned, tears welling up in her eyes. Don't worry, he added, do whatever you want with it. When you get the documents, sign them to formalize this. She cried as he turned to go and heard her calling after him, but he kept walking, a single tear falling down his cheek. Furious, he went to a neighborhood bar to escape his difficulties. He ordered a glass of wine, completed it, and then ordered another. Several glasses. Lee and another man joined him at the bar, sitting on either side of us. I noticed you talking to your wife, Lee, and she asked how you were feeling. Answered. Lee nodded. I've gone through bad times as well. My first marriage ended in disaster and I've been divorced twice because it's hard, but things can get better. Yeah, I could use some good news, Jack replied. Sip of his drink. The 2 men who attacked you today confessed everything Lee mentioned. They revealed that Brad ordered. They attempted to attack you and pay for your capture, but they failed and verified Brad's involvement. Following additional leads and plan to examine Brad and your wife tomorrow. Are those 2 still in detention, Jack? Lee said, we have some agents keeping an eye on you just in case you see them protecting. We might have more questions for you after the interrogation. Why would he go to such lengths? Jack pondered. He wanted your wife. That's all Lee explained. We don't think she had any role in his plans. My intuition tells me no, but I haven't spoken to her yet, he said. I'll know for sure after I speak with her. Jack completed his drink and ordered another. Lee watched him take a sip. I think you've had enough for tonight, he murmured. All right, Jack. He immediately drank the drink and slammed his glass on the bar, signaling for another from the bartender. When Lee raised his hand, it was time to go. Gunny, Lee remarked, let my buddy drive. You back to the motel. Jack pondered about disputing with Lee, but instead handed his keys to Lee's companion. Good decision. Jack said, I'm not drunk, just tired, and Lee's partner drove him back. Reached the motel and helped him inside. I'll pick you up tomorrow afternoon, Lee replied. Jack nodded, took off his uniform, and went to bed. The next day, Jack ate breakfast and then walked to the store. His phone called as he was returning to the motel, asking for coffee, 6 bottles of beer, some sodas, and a few nibbles. Sarah asked, Are you okay, princess? Jack questioned, Why? Mom was really upset. Sarah came home yesterday night and said, I've never seen her cry like that. Was Brad with her? Jack asked. No, he wasn't. Sarah said, What happened last night? I introduced myself to your mother and her friend and had a wonderful conversation with her. Jack claimed that anything you said got to her. Sarah replied, okay. And Jack added, maybe she'll see what a tremendous mistake she made. Me posted, Dad. She said, I don't like what she did either, but I don't want her to be hurt. Don't worry, princess, he said. Ending the conversation, Lee arrived earlier that day and picked up Jack, taking him to NCIS headquarters. Anna and her lover were to be interrogated. Jack watched from him. Anna looked unhappy when she was led into the observation room, sat, and given a bottle of water. But she had no choice. Finally, Lee entered the room and sat across from her. Why am I here? Anna said. Lee opened a folder and spread down 3 images in front of her, 2 of which were of the men who attacked Lee and Jack, and the third was a snapshot of Jack arriving at the embassy in Addis Ababa. Anna recoiled. When she saw the photo, Lee asked, "Don't you recognize your husband?" That a photo of Jack, she questioned, shocked. Lee nodded sure. That's how he looked. When he arrived at the embassy in Addis Ababa after a long travel, based on his accounts, we estimate he went roughly 2,500 miles, and we believe he was somewhere in Ghana when he escaped his captors. Lee stated if he had stayed, he might not have survived another day or two. Anna began to cry. I had to choose whether to charge you as an accomplice to his kidnapping, attempted murder, or both, combined with aiding and abetting known terrorists. Anna was surprised I didn't do. Lee claimed that your partner paid those two to assault. They failed to apprehend your husband, but they did corroborate Brad's involvement. You plan to declare your. Anna paused before speaking, solely because Brad said. It was crucial because no one knew where he was for over 5 years, and you planned to marry Brad after the court. Lee inquired, have you proclaimed your husband dead? Anna responded, what happened when he divorced? Lee glanced at his wife Anna, whose eyes were filled with sorrow as he explained you. Began a relationship with Brad Jefferson after you became CEO. Others believe you planned to marry him after the court proclaimed your husband deceased and finalized the divorce, but we have to believe you didn't know Brad paid for the kidnapping and detention of your husband for 5 years, or possibly ordered your husband's murder. Is that correct? Anna began crying. You had to believe me when she said, tears flowing down her cheeks. I didn't know Jack was kidnapped, or there was an attempt on his life. Lee shook his head. Only believe what the evidence shows. Brad has already pointed to you, stating it was your idea. Anna's eyes blazed with rage. That's not true, you know it. I adore my husband, she added. Would never do that to him, but you cheated on him. Lee replied, yes, I slept with Brad and I'm sorry for that, but Brad stated Jack was probably dead. She said I would never have betrayed Jack if I thought he was still alive. I waited about 2 years and heard nothing from you. I didn't know what to think. Lee stared at her for a few minutes, eyes narrowed. Finally, he stood up. I believe you, Mrs. Thompson, he said. I'm not going to pursue charges right now, but maybe later. I review all the evidence, but your lover won't be as lucky. I propose staying in the vicinity in case we need to. Talk to you again. He stood up and left the room. Anna hung her head, sobbing. A while later, Brad entered the room, approached Anna, and put his hand on her. She leaped out of her chair and punched him, knocking him to the floor. Anna, please. Brad continued to kick him in the genitals, making Jack smile. Shut up, you disgusting man, Anna replied. I just pray to God that Jack forgives me for making a mistake. Lee unlocked the door and lifted Brad off the floor, handcuffed. Behind his back, he winked at Anna before turning off the light and leaving, allowing her to see Jack through For the second time in as many days, Jack turned and walked away from the one-way observation glass, leaving Anna in tears. The following day, Anna was served with divorce papers at her office. Sally contacted him and said, hello, Jack. I wanted to let you know that Anna came to visit me today. She signed the divorce papers and will not challenge anything. She also left something for you to pick up. It seems like a very substantial check, which she instructed me to tell you about. Sarah, whenever you want, has resigned as CEO of Whitman Enterprises effective immediately and is putting her house up for sale. I submitted everything, so you'll be a free man in 6 months. Free. Jack remarked with remorse. Oh, right. I suppose I should be a happy man, but I'm not, Jack. I know she injured you deeply, but I believe Sally still loves you and claims you may cancel this if you reconcile. You haven't heard her side of all this. Maybe you should just get closure. I'll think about it, he answered. Thanks for all of your help. He finished the call and walked to a neighborhood cafe for coffee. Sat over his second cup. Lee arrived. Jack got him a coffee, and they talked about their daily life. I heard Lee mentioned that his wife was served today, to which Jack responded, I guess I should be happy. Man, but I'm not. Life goes on. Gunny Lee stated, I believe Anna was as much a victim as you were. I'll pop by once I finish my inquiry. They had another coffee before Lee spoke. Again, you have instructions for the office tomorrow. You've been assigned as an instructor at the Scout Sniper School in Pendleton and promoted to Master Sergeant. Jack looked at the new chevrons and said, I'll be there early tomorrow. He walked to Sally's office and picked up the envelope Anna had left earlier. Inside, there was a cashier's check with numerous zeros and a business card. Anna suggested you contact a qualified financial advisor to aid you with this. To agree, Jack nodded. Don't worry, Anna will still be fine financially. Has 30 and the money from the trust, plus she gets a modest dividend from the company that her father still owns. Thanks. Jack remarked. Why the long face, Jack? She said you should be joyful because you won. But at what cost? He asked. Anna was my life. She helped me survive my ordeal. Everything I did in Africa was for her. And now everything has gone well, though not entirely. Sally said that you still have 6 months if you truly care about her. Things can change. Sally only shook her head in answer. Maybe you should call her. She suggested at least think about it, and I'll think about it, he agreed. After returning to the motel, he called Sarah and said, Hi, Dad. Said, how are you doing? Not great. Want to get a burger somewhere? Sure, she responded. When do you want to meet? I'll be waiting for you right now, he asked. She said. Jack got into his truck and picked up Sarah. Fortunately, Anna was not home, so they drove to the nearest In-N-Out for a burger and soda after dinner. They visited a neighboring park. I'll be going to Camp Pendleton soon, Jack added. I'll get my orders tomorrow and probably head out. I don't see any reason to stay here anymore. What will you be doing there? Sarah questioned. I'll be the new instructor at the Scout Sniper School, he said. I'm not sure how long, she asked, but he said maybe around 3 years. Will you? Will you still go overseas? Sarah said. Jack shrugged. I'm not sure, not anytime soon. He remarked. You can always see me whenever you want, she grinned. I'd want you to be with us full time, she said. He nodded at me, princess, and replied, I agree. When are you leaving? She inquired. He told me a few days ago that after I get my new chevron sewed on my uniforms, I'll be promoted to Master Sergeant. Congratulations, she responded. Thank you. He smiled and continued, Listen, Camp Pendleton isn't too far. We can meet up anytime you want. I'd appreciate that, Dad, she said. I've heard that Mom still loves you. He asked if you still love her. She asked, Yes, I probably always will. He said, I hate what she did, and I'm not sure I can trust her again. I remember you saying individuals deserve a second chance after making a mistake, she remarked. Don't you think Mom deserves that too? Your mother went far further, saying it will take a long time for me to get over. Sarah added, I just hate that you two are apart, and so do I. Sarah added that after spending more time with his daughter, he took her home, relieved that Anna was still not back. He returned to his hotel and concluded the day. The next day, he contacted Lee, who had his orders and promotion certificate. Congratulations, Master Sergeant, Lee remarked, reading the certificate. I'll be in touch. The inquiry is almost complete, and I'll let you know what I find. Thanks to Lee, Jack, for everything. He took his uniforms to the dry cleaners and had the new chevron stitched on. He spoke with the financial advisor Anna recommended, instructed him to handle the money as he saw fit. The financial advisor appeared astonished, but stated he would do as Jack. A day later, he arrived in Pendleton and checked in, beginning his new duty as a teacher at the camp Sniper School. He enjoyed his new work teaching the young Marines, but the absence of Anna weighed heavily on him. It felt like a huge part of his life was missing. He used to share everything with her, but she was no longer there. Over the course of 2 months, Jack called Sarah virtually every other day to stay motivated. He discovered that Anna had received an offer to buy her property and was thinking about purchasing a condo in San Diego. Brad was facing federal accusations for conspiring with terrorists to commit murder, kidnapping, and Anna's father, the former CEO of Whitman Enterprises, might face life in prison for assisting America's adversaries. Returned to work and offered her a future leadership role, which she declined. A month later, Sarah called Jack. In a frenzy, told him that her mother was in the hospital. What occurred? He questioned Sarah whether she attempted suicide. All right, Jack said. I'm on my way. Where is she? She's at Scripps La Jolla Hospital, she said. Dad. Jack pulled on his coat and rushed out, getting into his car. After driving as fast as he could to the hospital, when he saw Sarah in the waiting room, screaming about what occurred. He inquired, cuddling Sarah. I arrived home from school and found her in bed. She stated that there was a bottle of sleeping tablets and a bottle of whiskey. She was holding your photo and unresponsive. I phoned 911 and they carried her here. Should have seen this coming, Dad. I'm sorry, but it's all right. Jack said it's not your fault. They'll take good care of her as kid SED, Dad, since you left everything. She does nothing but drink and cry. She no longer cooks, cleans, or does anything. She scarcely eats and seems to have lost the will to live. Can't you forgive her, Father? She's miserable without you, and so am I, Jack. He cuddled his daughter for a few minutes before approaching the nurse's station to find out what he could do for her. They asked me if I was her spouse, despite the fact that we were separated. Condition, Jack? Queried the nurse, who hesitated but supplied information concerning Anna Scheck in a room. Doctor, they said. I'm coming, Dr. Smith said, approaching. I'm Dr. Smith, are you? Jack, Anna Thompson's husband, nodded affirmatively. I am Dr. Smith, and I informed Jack that wife was stable after the majority of the sleeping pills were extracted from her stomach. She would be monitored. After an evaluation and recommended counseling, he was allowed to see her, but she would remain sleepy for some time. Jack was astonished by her frailty and pallor, but relieved to find that she was still wearing her wedding bands. He closed his eyes and grieved, wishing for her recovery. Sarah hugged him, and both cried. Why are we alive? Jack muttered, his voice shaking. Why did you do this? Please don't die. I don't want to lose you like this after a few hours, he felt. Anna moved and heard her feeble voice. Jack. She questioned, is it really you? He glanced. He kissed her and held her tight, tears welling up in her eyes. Yes, Anna, this is me, he murmured gently. I'm really here. They cried together, hugging one another closely. Anna pushed away slightly. I'm sorry, Jack, she murmured. I never had the chance to explain. Will you ever forgive me? He kissed her softly and laid his. Putting his finger on her lips, he whispered, we'll discuss later. For now, just focus. Becoming better, okay? She nodded. Please stay with me, Elsa St., he assured her, hugging her thin body close. I'm not going anywhere, I promise. He stayed by Anna's side all day and most of the night till Sarah came to take his place. You should definitely take a break and grab a shower, Sarah said. How is she? Doing that sounds wonderful, he said. She's improving, so I think she'll be fine, but sure. Shower would be fantastic. She won't be fully okay till you two are together, Sarah stated. She has been battling since, well. You know, Jack nodded. Yes, I know. He sat next to Anna and held her hand. I'll be back, okay? She squeezed his hand. I swear I'll be back, he replied. He went to his room, had a shower. He changed clothes and called his superior to offer an update. His commander remarked, take care of your wife. You have leave, so don't come back until she's home. Jack agreed and returned to the hospital. Anna's eyes brightened up. You're back, she whispered. I told you I'd be back. He said. They spent the next day explaining what happened while he was detained. That NCIS guy indicated you walked roughly 2,500 miles across Africa. She responded, that must have been hard. And he said, I'm sorry, Jack, she said. I didn't know Brad had you abducted. Why did he do it? And why did you go along with declaring me dead? Jack questioned, wanting to end his marriage. Anna stated that he got my father to retire early and help me gain a promotion at work after we learned about. After my promotion was accepted, Brad began mentoring me and taking me out to lunch. I knew he wanted more, but rebuffed his approaches. He backed off but kept pushing. I missed you yet felt amazing. After having someone care about me for 2 years, I earned nothing from the military. He got me to drink one night, and it happened for the first time in nearly 4 years of your absence. Recommended claiming you dead, believing that with your absence, I'd obtain your insurance payout, which he could use to divorce. His wife, while Jack said that would be roughly 400,000, and he planned to spend it for his divorce. Anna nodded. He claimed his wife would take everything in the divorce. He'd need money to survive till we married. And you were going to give it to him? Jack inquired. I wasn't thinking. Anna rationally stated I had enough for me, and I regarded your insurance money unclean, so I wouldn't feel taking it. I also considered utilizing it for Sarah's college and suggested it, but he did not like it. Did you ever stop seeing him? Jack inquired. Anna said, I ended the relationship as soon as I found out you were alive. I told him that as long as we were still married, I would not be with him. I didn't like that I assumed you were dead, and no one told me otherwise, so many years had passed, and everyone felt the chances of you being alive were minimal. Jack listened closely. I understand what he said, but why was he so aloof when I returned? You put me in a different room when I arrived home. I was astonished. Anna replied, I didn't think you were actually alive until I saw and spoke with you. And then there was Brad. Please, Jack, you have no idea how much pressure he placed on me. And when I saw you that night, I understood it was true. I cried before continuing the sight on your face when you initially confronted me. I had never seen that look before, and the way you spoke to me worried me, she added, and I realized I had made a terrible mistake. I don't want to see that face. Again, you didn't let me explain anything. You've already made up your mind. That is, why you didn't fight the divorce, Jack asked Anna. Anna nodded, knowing it was useless. You have the prenuptial agreement and all the documentation, she said, even if I was fooled by that man. In the wrong, so I moved back, as you say, a tactical retreat. You and I lost. We both lost our lives, Jack said. You still have a career in the Marine Corps, but it means nothing without. Anna began to cry, her body shivering as she wailed. He asked her to share it with him. He held her closely. I'm sorry, Jack. She wailed. I've missed you so much, please. Tears flowed down his cheeks as he reflected on all she had said. I forgive you. Anna, he whispered between his tears. Anna cried even harder, clutching him as closely as she could. They continued talking. Throughout the day, they reminisced about their lives until the doctor came into the room to advise Anna that her tests were fine and she could leave the hospital. Jack called Sarah to inform her that she didn't need to come to the Thank you, Dad, she said. I'll cook dinner for you when you get home. The thought of home weighed heavily on Jack's mind as the hospital transferred Anna to the patient drop-off area. Jack waited in his truck, assisted her into the truck, secured her seatbelt, and drove her to her condo. Jack helped Anna, boarded the elevator, and took her to the front door. He was surprised when he entered the condo because it looked exactly like it had when they lived together, loaded with family photos and mementos of his military service. I hope you like it, Anna. Sarah came out of the kitchen, removing an apron. Meal is ready, she stated, mimicking the servant from her mother's mansion in Los Angeles. They entered the Sarah sat them at a table set for two, adorned with lit candles, chilled wine, and a covered dish. Uncovered the main dish, exposing a big lasagna. She served them and poured each of them a glass of wine. Your dish, Princess, Jack asked Sarah, who grinned and said, This is your dinner. She remarked, I'm going out with friends. See you later. She kissed him on the cheek and told them to behave. Smile as she left. Our daughter has truly grown up. Jack responded, yes. Anna answered by raising her glass and proposing a toast to us, saying Jack grinned and joined the toast. They ate the lasagna Sarah had cooked and wiped the table. Anna approached to Jack. Would you She smiled and asked, "Would you like to stay for dessert?" He replied, "What did you have in mind?" She took his hand and led him down the hall to the living area. She remarked cheerfully, embracing him. Jack felt a familiar thrill of comfort. She broke the embrace and went to her dresser. She unlocked her jewelry box and took something out. She handed it to him and said, "I believe this is yours," taking his left hand and placed his wedding band back on his finger and hugged him again till death do us part, she added. He grinned. As she changed into pajamas, she said, "You're wearing too much for what I have in mind." Naked, she knelt before him and hugged his legs. Jack felt a familiar sense of excitement, and they exchanged loving. As their bond strengthened, Jack felt the urge to demonstrate his affection. "I am thankful for this time with you," he added. Anna smiled and continued their embrace. After their private encounter, they shared tinder, which left them feeling satiated and fulfilled. Kisses and embraces, Jack's renewed energy and desire made them both feel connected and satisfied. After a long time together, they fell asleep in each other's. The next morning, Jack awoke to find Anna still holding him. He gazed at the clock and pondered getting up, but Anna persuaded him to wait till you're on leave. She stated, "You may always contact them and say you've been trapped by a wild woman who won't let you go till you give her a million hugs." "It sounds insane enough to work," Jack remarked, smiling. Anna grabbed him. "I'm serious," she said. "Have 6 years to make up for." "So are we reconciling?" he said. She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, if you want to," she said. Jack smiled and